Daisy.
And I'm Terri.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 210. And this week it is Terri's turn to share something with us. Terri, what do you have for us today?
Well, Daisy, I went to a podcast that I think we've mentioned before, but it's been quite a while. I'll share my criteria. I think people have probably picked up on this. Something that doesn't take me too long to listen to. So unfortunately, I will almost never again share Andrew Huberman because those are 2 and 3 hour podcasts and I have to listen several times. So that's like a full-time job.
They're so interesting to listen to, but the real challenge comes because it is so packed with it. It's not like 2 hours or an hour and a half of waffle and half an hour. It is just 2 hours that's so packed. It's like, how do I choose? Yeah. You almost have to I'll just take a little section.
Yeah. And then the other criteria for me, Daisy, is it a topic that I think will be something that listeners can kind of take away something from it? So it's got to be kind of short for me to listen to it a few times and get the gist of it to share, and hopefully something that is applicable for people listening. And so this time I chose an episode from the Ed Mylett Show. And again, I think we've talked about him before many, many, many months ago. But this episode is called 10 Steps to Making Better Decisions Today.
I always like a certain number of steps.
Especially if they give you all.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you and
just
I will find
off at number 6
things and you only hear 3 or 4. And you're like, wait, where are the other 2? He does actually share all 10. I would say the one thing as I was listening to the 10 ways that threw me a little bit is the examples he gave were a little bit more for like business owners or bosses, entrepreneurs running a business and things. But I do think most of these things are applicable to us in our everyday life, not just if we own a company. Maybe it was a little more around the language he used. But one of the things he talks about is, first of all, the idea that a lot of us get really kind of wound up about worrying whether we're going to make the right decision, as if there is one right choice.
Yeah, that's me.
And he said several times, instead of worrying about making the right decision, focus on making decisions the right way.
Oh, yeah. Good distinction.
And so it's a nice little distinction there. And, of course, we know these things, but these are good reminders. The idea that we can't control the outcome of our decisions, technically. But what we can control is our intention and the process that we put into making the decision and the information that we gathered, rather than thinking somehow magically we're going to be able to control the outcome. This reminds me of my work as a therapist because it was a big theme with many of my clients when they were facing a difficult decision. Is I would really try to emphasize there's not a wrong decision here. A big part of how you feel about it will be based on whether you believe you've made the best decision possible at this time. And the thing that will undermine this is after you make the decision, if you go back and second guess it. Take something really simple. You're buying a new car. And I have done this about cars because I don't know why, but like the color of the car is really significant to me. And I bought a car and I bought the silver one, but I really loved the dark red burgundy color. And then after I bought it, every time I would see that color, I would think, oh, why didn't I get that one? Now, big picture, it doesn't really matter what that color car I have. But I felt some angst because I was going back and second guessing my decision. So I think there is a big piece of this of we have to trust that whatever decision I make is going to be that I made it in a good way. I used the data possible. That doesn't mean I've had all the data available, but I used the data available. And then I'm pleased with how I made the decision. He also emphasized a little phrase that he thinks is important, and that is, remember, focus on process over prize. So prize would be the outcome. You know that old saying, life is not about the destination, it's the journey. Same thing. It's the process of making the decision and getting to your conclusion rather than the ultimate prize. He reaffirmed what I just shared with you. Moving forward as if you've made the right choice is really a significant factor. And also remembering that one of the great things in life is, besides a few choices, you'll get to make another decision about this. So if you make a decision, it plays out for a while, and you realize at that point that you don't like how it's going, you get to make another decision. So most of our decisions are not finite. They are not one and done, and never again can we affect this.
That's very true. It feeds into the next time you make that sort of decision. So if you couldn't stop thinking about wanting a deep burgundy car, well, that feeds in the next time you make a decision about buying a car. You realize you've learned from that going with that gut, going with my gut color choice is really important. So the next time when it comes to make that choice, okay, I'm going to go with my gut and not with my sensible choice or whatever it was, and see how that one plays out.
And in that example, sometimes we make part of the decision based on what's easier. They had lots of the silver car. I was going to have to wait a couple of weeks to get the other color, and I didn't want to wait a couple of weeks. So that too informs my next time I make a decision about what color car to buy. Make the choice that you really want, regardless of some of these other factors. It's a great point. All right, so here are a list of 10 steps in making better decisions. Number one, great decisions are made with certainty, confidence, claiming this is the answer I'm choosing, rather than that waffling. And he brought in, again, this is where it starts to move a little bit more into kind of business ownership or entrepreneur or leadership. But the idea that decisions, when you make them with certainty equals influence. If two people are debating an issue and one person's kind of waffly about it,
that's true.
The person who is more certain is going to influence the other person more.
Yeah.
So certainty is influence. So making your decision with certainty. So let's say your decision is about something as a parent and you have 2 young kids at home. Making your decision with certainty is going to carry more weight than, I don't know, maybe this will be okay. It's going to be a better decision when you have certainty in making it. Number 2, great decisions are timely. And he talks about, in another book that he's written, he talked about the 4 D's that hold you back in life: doubt, discouragement, delusion, and delay. And he said, so many things are affected by us pausing too long in making our decision, delaying the decision too long, that we miss some of the opportunity. Now, of course, I know some of us have also had the opposite. I made the decision too quickly, but I think that's a different issue. Some of us want to ride it out until we gather every single piece of information, which we can't do. That means we're never going to get to make that decision. So great decisions are made in a timely fashion. Number 3, great decisions are communicated well. And that means that they have strength and clarity, and they help the other people involved to understand why or how or what will this decision mean. So if we are using this from a business perspective, the business owner or the CEO or whoever's making the decision, or the parent who's making the decision, rather than saying, we're doing it this way because I said so, because I'm the boss, or because I'm the mom or the dad or whatever. Help them understand, how is this going to help the family? What will this do for us? How is this going to serve the business? So great decisions are communicated well.
That goes hand in hand with a certainty one, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because if you're certain about something, then you should hopefully anyway be able to communicate the things that led you to be certain about it. And hopefully, yes, that will be persuasive because it persuaded you. It led you to the certainty. So being able to communicate that will help bring the other person to the certainty, the other people, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But they go together, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And whether it's a decision you're making that's going to affect other people or really a decision that's only going to affect you, having confidence in it, having a clear sense of why I've made this decision and I'm going to stand with that, it really does hold some value in the outcomes.
Yeah, so even if you're only communicating to yourself.
I bought this silver car because it was available and it looks clean longer. There we go. Number 4, great decisions involve the one catalyst decision. And the way I understood this is that sometimes when people have to make a big decision, they often will make a couple of lower level decisions instead because they feel less risky. And he said, really, you want to be looking at the catalyst decision, that decision, that one thing that you can change, that one thing that's going to offer the change that you're looking for. And one example I can think of for so many of us when we are struggling at some point in our lives, maybe that catalyst decision is, I'm going to transition with my job. I'm going to take on a new role. I'm going to leave this company and work for a different company. I'm going to start my own business. But again, those feel riskier than maybe I'll go buy a boat, to make myself feel better. I'm going to actually do the bigger thing that's going to offer more change. Number 5, great decisions consider the holistic impacts of a problem. So thinking kind of broadly about the what ifs, exploring the potential negative outcomes. And I know sometimes you're like, no, don't focus on the negative. You're just going to bring the negative. But I think sometimes being able to see what are some possible impacts of this decision. Are we willing to withstand those? And if we are, because the desired step is important enough to us, then we're okay with those consequences. But if those consequences are too costly, maybe we make a different decision. So evaluating those potential negatives, evaluate the risk versus reward in the decision. Number 6, see, Daisy, we're getting all the way through number 10. Number 6, great decisions consider what he calls SWOT, SWOT analysis.
I'm assuming that hasn't got anything to do with the Netflix series that I binged that's all about the SWAT team that go in and shoot.
That's with an A. I thought the same thing. It wasn't until he delineated what the 4 words were that I thought, oh, it's not spelled that way.
I'm just picturing people with guns.
No, that is not how we should make our decisions, technically. So the SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Okay.
So really looking at all of these factors. What are the strengths going into this? What are the weaknesses? What are the, possible vulnerabilities in this? Where are the opportunities and where are the threats? Number 7, great decisions are made by a clearly accountable person. I really loved this one because he leaned into the idea of leadership in this example. So, maybe this isn't quite the same, me deciding what color car to get, but, especially maybe in a business or something where there's a leader, people will respond better when they know there is someone who is clearly accountable for the decision. Even if they don't like the decision, they might not want to complain about the outcome or the decision if they're fearful that that's going to roll onto them and they're going to get blamed for it.
Yeah, so it feels like what that's saying is someone really is standing behind their decision.
That's right.
They're really owning it and
owning
the potential outcomes. Yeah.
That's right. Even if it doesn't turn out to be the best decision, they're saying, hey, look, I'm your leader. And you're going to, you're having to put your trust into my hands and I will make the best decisions possible. And when those turn out not to be the best decisions, I will take accountability to take the next step. So I think this is true, especially in leadership situations. We can get behind a decision better when we know there is an accountable person making the decision, a person who will be held accountable.
It comes round again. They're all linking back, aren't they, to
Absolutely.
Other ones like the certainty and the communication. Yeah.
Number 8, great decisions address the disease, not just the symptoms. And so I think of this, kind of like when we talk about health, it's really looking at the underlying issue versus how can we fix these Band-Aid things at the surface. Oh, this isn't working. Oh, maybe, we just need to, let's say, for example, people said, hey, Daisy and Terri, we just don't like your podcast. When we said, maybe we need to buy new microphones. Yeah, maybe that's it. It's looking at the symptom of, it's this thing that, there's a clicking noise in Terry's microphone versus is the content and the quality of the podcast something that we need to look at? So really looking at the underlying issue rather than those surface level, easier to identify and easier to address things. Number 9, great decisions are made as close to possible to the action. So this really means whoever's making the decision should talk to the people who have the most extensive knowledge or experience because they're the ones doing the real work. They're the ones in the trenches.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So again, this is an example where I meant that much of this sounded like a business example, but oftentimes companies make decisions based on high ups in the boardroom versus the customer service people who are receiving the complaints about the product or whatever that is. So going to the people who are closest to the actual work being done.
You have the knowledge. Yeah. I can also seeing that applying to family units, making decisions that, are based more on assumptions or based on your point of view rather than actually really talking to the people that it impacts the most.
Yeah, if you're parents and you're deciding about a summer plan and you sit in your room thinking what will be best for the kids, but the kids are 16 and
without asking
12,
them.
and they have very different thoughts about what's best for them this summer. And so, like you said, talking to them and getting their input, not just assuming you know what is best for everyone. And then number 10, great decisions should be followed by discernment. And when he first said this, I cringed just a little bit because he didn't say discernment. He kind of added that as a revision of it, but he said that it should be followed by prayer. And for those of us who are not into kind of a religious way of looking at things, I think discernment is a great reframe for this. And that means once you've made the decision, you should take time to pause and really reflect. So if prayer is something powerful for you, then you would pray on it. Maybe it just means meditate on it for a while or just really sit with it and focus on it. That we strengthen our energy toward that decision. We strengthen our commitment to it by doing this discernment after the decision has been made. So I think that is a really nice way to kind of wrap up the list of 10, that making the choice and giving yourself some time to really focus on it and absorb it, make it, kind of come into reality, I think is a nice last step.
Yes, I made a couple of notes as you were reading out that list. And number 5, the holistic one, reminded me very much of, and I feel really guilty because I can't remember her name. I always want to say Mel Robbins, and it's not Mel Robbins. And I can't remember her name, and I really should do because it's her method that is one of the ones that I love the most about, and this is kind of about making big decisions or making changes in your life. And it's her no bullshit, what will it take, is what she says. And I will look it up and I will put it in the notes. I'm terribly sorry I can't remember who it was. I always forget and I always feel guilty about it. But I love it. This is something that they started practicing as a couple, rather than that sort of wishy-washy thinking about it, it is with this certainty, but it's the steps that you take to get to making that decision and really thinking about, no bullshit, what will it take to do this thing that I keep saying I want to do? What's it actually going to take? And am I prepared to do those things? Mm-hmm. And you're really thinking through with a lot of these steps that you mentioned today. So it really made me think of that. And I can't remember which number it was. It was one of the final numbers, but I always like to be able to refer it back to my dogs, but it was definitely very applicable. And it was the looking at the disease, not the symptoms. And this is, as you know, and as I have mentioned on the podcast, I've been listening to watching lots of dog training videos. And really, Lila has set me off on this education about how to really get to know dogs properly. But this is one of the big messages that keeps being reinforced to me, is that to change the problems that you're seeing, because really problematic dog behavior is actually almost always perfectly normal dog behavior, but what you've got to figure out is what's going on behind it, and you've got to fix that root cause. The guy that I've been watching a lot recently talks about training is such a small part of it. First, you've got to help your dog. You've got to get your dog into that happy, confident place where they can make the decisions you want them to, and you guide them towards making those decisions with the training. But the training is a small part of it. So you've really got to get to the nuts and bolts of it. And so I think that's something that applies to so many things, like you were saying, especially in the health and wellness space and all of these things. But anything really, it's getting to what is the root cause, what is the root of what's going on, not all the sort of surface stuff or the bits that are quite often the easiest things to play around with. You've got to really get to the crux of it, haven't you? If you want to sort it out long term.
And I think the dog training video that you shared with me, I'm not remembering exactly, but correct me if I'm wrong, that their message was, it's the thing under the thing.
The thing before the thing.
Before the thing, yeah. So it's like, oh, well, they bark. Yes, but what's the thing before that thing? Oh, well, this happens. What's the thing before that thing? Which reminds me of another kind of reference to this in the book, This Naked Mind, with Annie Grace. This was one we touched on briefly months ago about her decision to stop using alcohol. But she talks about in marketing, I can't think of the word she used, but basically, what does the consumer want? But then you have to go below that. Get to the need underneath that need.
Yeah. And what need are you addressing? Yeah.
So if I'm selling cologne, I might think the need is these people want to smell nice. Oh no, it goes so much deeper than that. It may go to they want to feel connected to people. They don't want to be rejected. Whatever it is, they need status. But I'm trying to sell cologne. But it's not just about the smell. There's a need below that need and below that need. And if you keep digging in, that's what you're trying to target in your marketing. Don't just tell them they're going to smell good. What's the good of smelling good? People are going to be drawn to you like a magnet. You're going to pick up dates in a club so fast. Okay, that is what they want to hear. Not that they're going to smell good. So you're right. That is a really good one to think about.
Oh, that reminds me just before we go, because it'll make you laugh. There was some scammy thing that was being pushed around when I was in my late teens. So we're going back many decades here, but it was, and what triggered me thinking about it was the perfume or the cologne or whatever it is and what's behind it. And it was this pheromone spray. It was all about attracting the perfect partner. And it was this pheromone spray that you could spray on yourself that was going to attract people subliminally. And yeah, great marketing.
And did it work?
I still remembered it. I can't remember whether I actually bought any or not. But I'm sure it probably didn't. It probably smelled like cat pee or something.
It's interesting that you brought that one up. Sorry, folks, we're getting off topic a little bit here, but I think these are really interesting things. There is a kind of big trend happening right now, and it's targeting young people through marketing about very high-priced perfumes and colognes. So 18, 19-year-old guys spending $200 on a bottle of cologne.
Wow, really?
Now, I've worn men's cologne, and I got it at Hollister, and I think it was $20 a bottle. I don't know that something could actually smell better than that, but the hype, and again, what you're selling to them is what this status will bring, or what this will mean, that they think nothing of spending $200 of their hard-earned cash on a stupid bottle of cologne. Sorry if any of you out there are cologne manufacturers, but you see my point. Kind of like the pheromone scent that you're talking about, Daisy.
It's funny how, and I wonder whether it is an age thing. It's not something I've thought about for so long, and I could actually wear perfume and I can tolerate it to a certain extent, depends on the perfume. It's something I avoided for so long because it just used to trigger headaches all the time. But it does take me back to my late teens, early 20s, where there were the sort of, the fashionable scents, weren't there, that you recognize, like Poison. I can remember, and it was so funny because it cropped up in a book that I was listening to the other day, and it's Poison. Yeah, I was going to say picture that smell. You know what I mean? I would recognize Poison like that, and you could spot it, and it was because everybody knew what that smell was. You knew, yes, that somebody had spent X amount of money on a bottle of Poison. So I suppose that's still going on now.
Yeah, just a much higher price.
Much higher price.
Yeah.
So you go. We've gone completely off track onto dogs and smells and various things, as we tend to do.
This is right.
But yes, very, very interesting. Those all made a lot of sense, and a lot of them made sense together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, very concise, some good takeaways. What I'm looking for when I target what I'm going to share next time. So who knows what I'll find next time to share, but hopefully we can bring in our dog examples and maybe some food references and we'll be all set. Very good.
Fabulous. Well, I hope you have a very wonderful week.
Take good care, everybody.